Welcome. Tonight, we embark on a journey through the story of boring human invention. As you settle in, let your mind relax and drift through time, exploring the boring creations that have shaped our world and touched every life. Take a slow, deep breath in. Exhale softly. Let us begin. Chapter 1: The definition of boring inventions and their hidden value. When we think about inventions that have shaped human history, our minds often jump to groundbreaking discoveries: electricity, the wheel, the internet. These innovations ignite excitement and admiration because they seem revolutionary. But lurking behind these flashy milestones are countless devices and mechanisms that, at first glance, appear dull or even insignificant. These are what we might call boring inventions, and yet, they form the backbone of progress in ways that are often invisible or underestimated. So what exactly makes an invention boring? The answer lies in perception. An invention is considered boring when it lacks immediate glamour or dramatic impact, but serves a fundamental purpose that quietly enables other innovations to function smoothly. For example, a simple screw or a standard bolt may not excite the imagination like a rocket launch or a smartphone app, but without them, modern infrastructure would be impossible. One way to define boredom in inventions is by their level of novelty and visibility. Many groundbreaking inventions are celebrated because they promise change, like the airplane revolutionizing travel, or because they appeal directly to our senses, like colorful displays on smartphones. Conversely, routine devices such as paper clips or electrical connectors rarely garner headlines but operate behind the scenes every day in offices and factories worldwide. Another criterion is how long an invention has been around before it becomes widely recognized for its importance. Many mundane inventions have ancient roots. Their simplicity has allowed them to endure through centuries with little change while remaining essential. Think about the zipper, invented over a century ago yet still fundamentally unchanged because its straightforward design fulfills its purpose efficiently. Why do society tend to overlook these seemingly dull devices? Partly because human nature gravitates toward novelty and spectacle. We love stories of innovation that promise dramatic improvements or new frontiers. Media coverage often emphasizes startups developing sleek gadgets rather than manufacturing processes involving standard nuts and bolts. This tendency creates an illusion that only exciting inventions count as progress. However, this perspective ignores a critical truth: utility doesn't always equate with excitement. In fact, the most transformative inventions are often those so ingrained into daily life they escape notice altogether until someone points them out as pivotal pieces of the puzzle. Understanding this requires us to reconsider how we evaluate innovation itself. Instead of measuring success solely by novelty or aesthetic appeal, we should also consider function, the role each device plays within larger systems, and influence over time. To illustrate this point further, think about how roads were built long before cars existed. Their usefulness was evident early on but initially lacked glamour compared to later vehicles traveling upon them. Similarly, standardized time zones didn't turn heads when first introduced but became critical for coordinating economies across vast regions. The concept of hidden value is central here. Many unassuming inventions underpin complex societal frameworks without receiving recognition for their contributions. Postal stamps simplified communication across distances at a time when long-distance messaging was slow and unreliable. Standardized clocks synchronized schedules across different regions. Even something like the humble pencil enabled literacy growth by providing accessible writing tools for students worldwide, all seemingly mundane yet profoundly influential. It's important to note that these boring innovations often lay dormant for years before their true significance becomes apparent, a process called latent impact. Sometimes their value is only realized after subsequent developments rely on them. They serve as foundational building blocks upon which more visible advances stand tall. By understanding these principles, how simplicity can mask importance, we begin reevaluating what counts as valuable innovation itself. This chapter sets out to challenge conventional notions rooted in excitement versus utility and paves the way for deeper appreciation of everyday objects that quietly shape human civilization. In summary, boring inventions aren't really boring. They're essential cogs in an intricate machine of progress you use every day without noticing. Recognizing their significance allows us to see beyond superficial glamour toward appreciating quiet ingenuity's true worth, a theme central not just in this chapter but throughout the most boring inventions in human history. As we move forward into specific examples of such innovations, from zippers to screwdrivers, we'll uncover stories demonstrating how utility often trumps spectacle in creating lasting change. and why rethinking our valuation system is vital if we truly aim to understand human progress holistically. Chapter 2: Everyday Objects That Changed Our Lives Without Fanfares. In the grand story of human progress, there are countless inventions celebrated for their revolutionary impact or their genius innovation. We cheer for the inventors who changed the world with groundbreaking ideas: electricity, airplanes, smartphones. But amid this parade of marvels, there exists a silent army of everyday objects that quietly keep our lives running smoothly: zippers, paperclips, screwdrivers. These unassuming tools and devices are often dismissed as dull or insignificant, yet they form the backbone of modern convenience and efficiency, shaping our daily routines in ways we rarely notice. Zippers are perhaps one of the most iconic examples. They seem simple, a strip of fabric with interlocking metal teeth, but their invention revolutionized clothing and baggage design. Before zippers, fasteners like hooks and buttons were common but often unreliable or time-consuming to use. The zipper story begins in the late 19th century when Whitcomb Judson patented a device called the clasp locker, aiming to replace hooks and eyes in shoes and garments. It was clunky initially, hard to operate and prone to jamming, but subsequent improvements turned it into a reliable fastening system. Today, zippers appear everywhere, from jeans to tents, an invisible yet essential part of daily life. They exemplify how an invention that seems trivial can become indispensable over time through incremental refinements and widespread adoption. The zipper's quiet efficiency enables us to dress quickly, secure our belongings, or even assemble complex machinery with ease. Similarly overlooked but crucial is the paperclip, a tiny steel marvel designed purely for holding papers together without damaging them or creating unnecessary bulk. Its origins date back to the late 19th century when inventors experimented with various ways to fasten sheets efficiently before staples became prevalent. The modern wire paperclip was popularized by Norwegian inventor Johan Voller in 1899 to 1901. Although he did not invent it first, several similar designs existed. The shape he patented became widely adopted worldwide. The beauty of this small device lies in its simplicity, a single piece of bent wire that holds multiple sheets securely yet allows easy removal without tearing or causing damage. Despite its unglamorous appearance, its utility spans offices, schools, homes, and even art installations, testament to how such modest inventions underpin productivity across society. Moving from fastening objects together to fixing things ourselves is another example. Screwdrivers have been around since at least the 15th century but only gained widespread popularity during industrialization when machinery required precise assembly and maintenance tools became essential. For mechanics and engineers alike, the screwdriver's design is remarkably straightforward, a handle connected by a shaft ending in a tip that fits into screw slots. But behind this simplicity lies clever engineering choices made over centuries regarding grip comfort, torque application, material strength, all tailored towards making tasks easier for users from different backgrounds. What makes these tools so vital is not just their individual function but how they integrate into larger systems that shape our lives invisibly yet powerfully. For instance, seamless clothing relies on zippers. Offices depend on countless paperclips holding documents together. Machinery hinges on countless screws secured by screwdrivers wielded by skilled workers. These mundane objects act as enablers. They hold everything together behind the scenes so we can focus on more visible achievements like innovations or creative pursuits. Furthermore, these ordinary inventions have remarkable manufacturing histories rooted in problem-solving rather than flashiness. Take zippers again. Early versions were complicated textile components requiring specialized machines. Later innovations involved better materials like molded plastic teeth, which reduced costs significantly while increasing durability. Similarly, mass production techniques transformed tiny metal clips into affordable staples accessible worldwide, making organization more straightforward than ever before, and ultimately fostering productivity gains across industries from education to corporate settings. This pattern illustrates an important point. Many seemingly boring inventions have undergone significant engineering efforts during their development phases, not because they needed groundbreaking technology but because they required refinement for mass use and reliability over time. And those improvements often laid foundations for larger technological ecosystems later down the line. In fact, the true power of these modest inventions becomes apparent when we realize they serve as building blocks within intricate networks extending far beyond what we see on surface level. Consider how standardized fasteners like screws enable modular construction techniques used not just in furniture assembly but also in aerospace engineering. How paperclips facilitate rapid document handling critical during bureaucratic processes. How zippers allow quick dressing solutions across fashion industries worldwide. All unnoticed yet indispensable links connecting various facets of human activity. The reason society tends not to celebrate these boring innovations is rooted largely in perception. Media coverage favors stories about disruptive technologies promising radical change, the new smartphone design or AI breakthroughs, rather than routine devices that quietly support existing systems day after day without fanfare. This tendency skews public appreciation away from foundational yet modest innovations whose cumulative effect fuels progress more reliably than flashy breakthroughs alone. However valuable these routine devices are, they symbolize stability and continuity. They also embody ingenuity driven not by spectacle but necessity. Their value lies precisely in being dependable workhorses enabling larger leaps forward later. As we reflect on these ordinary yet critical inventions within the most boring inventions in human history, it becomes clear why recognizing their importance matters profoundly. They remind us that meaningful progress often depends less on dazzling ideas emerging suddenly out of nowhere, and more on persistent refinement fostered through incremental improvements built upon ordinary foundations. By shifting our perspective toward appreciating routine innovations alongside celebrated breakthroughs, we gain a richer understanding of human ingenuity's true nature. In doing so, we honor both the excitement surrounding pioneering discoveries and the quiet perseverance embodied by countless small yet vital tools shaping our world every day. Chapter 3: The Engineering Behind Boring but Essential Inventions. In the grand tapestry of human innovation, not every thread glows with the brilliance of a groundbreaking discovery or captures the public's imagination. Many of the most vital inventions are, in fact, remarkably unremarkable on the surface, yet behind their simplicity lies a world of clever engineering solutions and problem-solving ingenuity. This chapter aims to peel back the layers on these seemingly dull inventions, revealing how their engineering challenges were met with precision and perseverance to create tools that underpin modern life. To understand why these inventions are so crucial despite their appearance of dullness, consider some common examples: standard bolts and screws, electrical connectors, or even everyday plumbing fittings. At first glance, they don't seem extraordinary. But when you examine their design process and underlying engineering principles, it becomes clear that they embody a mastery of problem-solving within strict constraints. Take bolts and screws as an example. Their basic function is to fasten objects securely together, a seemingly simple task. Yet developing a reliable screw capable of repeated use involved solving complex problems related to material strength, threading patterns, and manufacturing precision. Early screw designs faced issues like slipping out under stress or damaging materials during insertion. Engineers had to experiment with various thread geometries, such as the classic V-thread versus newer square threads, and select appropriate materials that combined durability with ease of manufacturing. One pivotal breakthrough was the development of standardized dimensions for screws, an effort driven by engineers seeking interoperability across different manufacturers and applications. This standardization was not trivial. It required meticulous calculations to ensure that screws would fit precisely into corresponding nuts or tapped holes without excessive force or looseness over time. The result was a universal system that could be mass-produced efficiently while maintaining consistent quality, a feat that seems obvious today but was revolutionary at its inception. Electrical connectors offer another fascinating glimpse into engineering ingenuity in mundane devices. These small components bridge complex electrical systems seamlessly but pose unique challenges in ensuring safety, conductivity, durability, and ease of assembly. Engineers tackling connector design had to address issues such as corrosion resistance, especially in environments exposed to moisture, and minimizing electrical resistance for efficiency. Consider how early electrical connectors evolved from simple metal clips to sophisticated multi-pin arrangements used in computers and telecommunications today. Achieving reliable contact without short circuits required innovative material choices like gold-plated contacts for corrosion resistance and spring-loaded mechanisms for maintaining consistent pressure over countless connection cycles. Similarly, overlooked plumbing fittings demonstrate impressive engineering thoughtfulness. Their primary goal is creating watertight seals while allowing easy assembly and disassembly, a task complicated by factors like varying water pressure or temperature changes causing expansion or contraction in pipes. Engineers designing these fittings had to innovate sealing techniques such as O-rings made from rubber-like materials capable of deforming without losing elasticity over time, or threaded joints optimized for tightness without cracking under stress. These innovations required extensive testing under real-world conditions before becoming standard parts used globally. Beyond individual components lies an even broader perspective: how these tiny innovations fit into larger technological ecosystems through modularity and compatibility principles established via rigorous engineering standards. When engineers developed standardized bolt sizes or connector interfaces, they created building blocks that could be combined flexibly across industries, from automobiles to aerospace, and scaled effortlessly as technology advanced. Crucially, many of these solutions emerged from addressing specific technical problems rather than pursuing novelty for its own sake. They were driven by necessity, making devices more reliable, simplifying manufacturing processes, reducing costs, improving safety, enabling new applications previously deemed impossible due to technical limitations. This focus on solving practical problems often involved iterative testing and refinement, trial and error coupled with analytical modeling, to arrive at optimal solutions within existing constraints like available materials or production capabilities. For example, early screw manufacturers experimented with different metal alloys until discovering combinations offering both strength and machinability suitable for mass production, a process requiring patience as much as ingenuity. Furthermore, many engineers working behind these boring inventions operated within strict tolerances dictated by industry standards because consistency mattered immensely when millions depended on their reliability. For instance, ensuring every bolt could withstand certain torque levels without failure during use in bridges or aircraft fuselages. This meticulous approach exemplifies an essential aspect often overlooked: that true engineering mastery doesn't always translate into visible excitement but manifests instead through disciplined problem-solving applied repeatedly across countless small challenges, each seemingly insignificant alone but collectively foundational for technological progress. In essence, what makes these inventions boring hides their remarkable complexity beneath unassuming exteriors. They are embodiments of careful design thinking rooted in solving tangible problems efficiently while adhering to evolving standards across industries worldwide. As we reevaluate our appreciation for innovation throughout this book titled The Most Boring Inventions in Human History, it becomes clear that recognizing this hidden depth enriches our understanding not just about specific objects, but about what constitutes real progress itself. Persistent effort applied diligently toward overcoming technical hurdles, even if those hurdles seem trivial at first glance. It reminds us that behind every simple bolt securing a skyscraper's steel frame or each connector powering global communication lies an intricate web woven from expert engineering decisions carefully crafted over decades, not glamorous perhaps, but undeniably essential. By shining light on this less glamorous side of invention, the diligent work embedded within routine yet critical components, we begin appreciating why some innovations may appear dull yet serve as pillars supporting entire civilization's advancement forward, quietly yet indelibly shaping human history's course. Chapter 4: Societal Impact of Mundane Innovations. In the grand tapestry of human history, it's easy to focus on the bright, shiny threads, famous inventions that transformed industries or captured our imaginations. The steam engine, the airplane, the internet. These are innovations that have altered the course of civilization and made headlines across generations. But woven between these spectacular breakthroughs are countless mundane inventions whose true influence is often invisible yet profoundly significant. These modest innovations serve as unseen scaffolding for society's structure, enabling communication, organization, and progress in ways we rarely recognize. Take postal stamps as an example. To many people today, a stamp is simply a small piece of decorated paper affixed to an envelope. Few realize that this tiny object revolutionized communication at a societal level. Before stamps came into existence in the mid-19th century, mailing letters was an expensive and complicated process involving payment at each stage of transit or reliance on handwritten agreements with local carriers. The introduction of standardized postage simplified this process dramatically, making mail more accessible to everyday citizens and businesses alike. The impact was enormous. Postal services became faster and more reliable. People could communicate across long distances with relative ease for the first time in history. This fostered economic growth by facilitating commerce beyond local markets. Businesses could coordinate shipments over vast regions. Families separated by distance could maintain contact regularly. Governments used postal systems to disseminate information efficiently. Standardized clocks exemplify another seemingly dull but transformative invention with societal impact beyond their apparent simplicity. Before mechanical clocks became widespread in the 14th century, timekeeping was inconsistent across regions. Local solar times varied significantly from town to town. As societies grew more complex during the Renaissance and subsequent centuries, coordinating activities like trade or public events required a common understanding of time. The adoption of standardized clocks brought about synchronization on a new scale, not just within cities but across nations through railways and telegraph networks. Train schedules depended on precise timing. Factories operated according to strict shifts. Daily routines shifted from being dictated by natural light to clock-based schedules that increased productivity and social coordination. This seemingly mundane device thus played a crucial role in shaping modern industrial society. Another illustrative example is the humble light switch, an ordinary device that quietly underpins our daily routines yet profoundly influences social organization and safety standards worldwide. By enabling easy control over electric lighting at home or workspaces, switches extended productive hours beyond daylight hours while improving safety by reducing hazards associated with open flames or inadequate illumination. Beyond individual convenience, widespread electrical lighting contributed indirectly to urban development patterns, the rise of nighttime economies, improved public safety through street lighting, all enabled by this unassuming invention's presence in countless buildings worldwide. Similarly overlooked but vital are simple tools like screwdrivers or paperclips. They may seem trivial but facilitate essential functions that keep society functioning smoothly every day. Screwdrivers enable assembly and maintenance across industries, from manufacturing cars to repairing household appliances, ensuring products stay operational longer and repairs happen efficiently without specialized training for every task. Paperclips serve as quick fixes for organizing documents, a function fundamental in offices worldwide where millions rely on these tiny fasteners daily for record-keeping without fuss or complexity. These inventions may not invoke excitement when showcased alongside high-tech gadgets, but their societal importance is undeniable. They form part of an invisible infrastructure supporting economic activity and social order. Many such inventions also underpin larger systems without attracting much attention because their value becomes apparent only when absent. Imagine if postal services suddenly ceased, or if there were no standardized clocks. We would see how deeply embedded these modest devices are within our social fabric. Furthermore, these innovations often facilitate other advancements indirectly by creating stable foundations upon which new ideas can evolve safely and efficiently. For instance, standardized screws made mass production feasible, postal systems enabled international trade, and reliable clocks synchronized global transportation networks. This interconnectedness highlights why many seemingly dull inventions have had outsized impacts that ripple through history in subtle yet meaningful ways. They enable complex societies to function seamlessly beneath our awareness. However, despite their importance, their capacity to shape society, they tend not to garner popular recognition or celebration because they lack aesthetic appeal or dramatic narratives associated with flashier innovations like smartphones or jet engines. Culturally, society tends toward valuing novelty over routine, a phenomenon reinforced by media hype emphasizing breakthrough moments rather than incremental progress built upon humble foundations themselves, often unseen but essential nonetheless. This bias can obscure appreciation for how ordinary devices serve as societal glue. They provide stability amid constant change, and often do so quietly behind scenes we rarely notice until something goes wrong, when they malfunction or disappear altogether. In reevaluating what constitutes societal impact within the most boring inventions in human history, it becomes clear that progress depends heavily on consistent support from unglamorous yet critical innovations like postal stamps or standardized clocks that silently orchestrate order amidst chaos. By recognizing these inventions' contributions beyond surface appearances, we gain deeper insight into how civilization advances, not solely through dazzling breakthroughs but also through persistent routines rooted in simplicity. Ultimately, their understated influence teaches us a vital lesson. Sometimes it's not about making headlines but about laying down steady bricks upon which entire civilizations stand resiliently strong. Understanding this expands our perspective on what truly drives human progress and reminds us always to value utility over spectacle even when it appears boring at first glance. Because behind every remarkable leap forward lies a foundation built upon countless ordinary yet essential innovations waiting patiently beneath the surface to shape history quietly yet indelibly over time. Chapter 5: Why Society Overlooks Ordinary Yet Critical Inventions. In a world driven by innovation and spectacle, it's easy to overlook the quiet heroes of human progress. The inventions that don't dazzle with flashy designs or groundbreaking concepts but are nonetheless vital to our daily lives. These are the boring inventions, the humble devices and systems that form the backbone of modern civilization. Ironically, society's focus on excitement and novelty has often left these ordinary inventions in the shadows, underestimated for their true importance. This chapter explores why society tends to ignore these modest innovations despite their profound impact. Understanding this phenomenon requires examining cultural perceptions of invention, media tendencies, commercial priorities, and aesthetic preferences, factors that collectively shape how we value different types of innovation. The culture of celebration. At the heart of societal oversight is a culture that celebrates novelty. Media outlets, advertising campaigns, and popular narratives tend to spotlight inventions that evoke wonder or excitement. Think flying cars, smart gadgets, or revolutionary medical devices. These stories evoke emotional responses because they promise progress and transformation. They symbolize human ingenuity pushing boundaries. Conversely, mundane inventions lack intrinsic glamour. They're often functional rather than spectacular, zippers instead of designer clothing closures, paperclips instead of art installations involving metalwork, electrical connectors instead of futuristic power systems. Because these objects don't scream revolution, they're rarely featured in headlines or celebrated in popular culture. Marketing and commercial hype further reinforce this disparity. Companies invest heavily in marketing products with immediate visual appeal or emotional allure because they generate buzz more effectively than silent improvements aimed at efficiency or durability. As a result, society develops an implicit bias toward recognizing only those innovations that are eye-catching rather than helpful. Aesthetic appeal versus utility. Another significant factor is aesthetic appeal, or rather the lack thereof, in many boring inventions. People tend to associate beauty with value. Shiny surfaces, sleek designs, eye-catching colors all contribute to an object's perceived worthiness for attention. Many routine devices like nuts and bolts or standard electrical plugs are utilitarian by nature. They serve their purpose without adornment. This utilitarian focus can lead us to dismiss such items as unworthy of admiration even though they embody engineering precision and functional elegance at a fundamental level. The truth is many seemingly dull objects possess impressive complexity when examined closely. Intricate threading on screws ensures secure assembly. Carefully designed electrical contacts maximize conductivity while minimizing wear. Yet because these details are invisible during everyday use, and because their appearance isn't glamorous, they remain invisible in public consciousness as symbols of progress. Historical bias toward flashy inventions. Historically speaking, societies have celebrated grander achievements, cathedrals built over centuries or monumental sculptures, while neglecting smaller innovations behind everyday life improvements. The Industrial Revolution brought mass production techniques that made simple tools widely available but didn't always garner admiration for those incremental advances. In modern times, too, high-profile tech launches attract massive attention. New smartphones boast improved cameras, electric vehicles promise cleaner transportation. All features designed partly based on countless routine engineering refinements hidden from view but essential for performance. This pattern persists because humans are naturally attracted to stories involving heroism and novelty, not necessarily appreciation for cumulative groundwork laid by ordinary inventions that quietly enable larger breakthroughs. The psychological aspect, overlooking routine progress. Psychologically speaking, though, for progress depends heavily on incremental steps. The tendency to overlook routine innovation stems from our desire for instant gratification and sensationalism. We crave breakthroughs we can see immediately and forget about the small gears turning behind scenes every day, ensuring everything functions smoothly. Furthermore, cognitive biases such as availability heuristic make us prioritize memorable events over less conspicuous contributions. When we think about technological advancement or societal change, even when it involves boring inventions, we remember fireworks displays rather than foundation-laying work done out of sight. Media representations reinforce this bias by focusing predominantly on dramatic stories rather than steady evolution through unnoticed improvements, a phenomenon sometimes called the glamour gap. The importance despite oversight. Despite being underappreciated publicly, and sometimes even within professional circles, the importance of ordinary yet critical inventions cannot be overstated. They constitute the unseen infrastructure supporting everything from communication networks to supply chains. For example, standardized clocks revolutionized scheduling across industries, postal stamps facilitated global communication, Even something as simple as a paperclip helped streamline office work worldwide without attracting much notice but enabling efficiency across sectors. These examples show how foundational elements shape societal organization far more profoundly than flashier counterparts, since stability relies on reliable fundamentals often deemed dull in appearance but vital in function. Changing perspectives, recognizing value beyond glamour to truly appreciate human progress, as emphasized throughout this book. It's essential we shift our perspective away from superficial aesthetics toward functional significance when evaluating invention value, which means recognizing that dullness does not equate with insignificance. One way forward involves educating ourselves about history's overlooked innovations, understanding how small adjustments accumulated over time led to major advances, such as standardization practices enabling global commerce today rooted in modest tools like screw threads or uniform weights. Additionally, fostering respect for engineering ingenuity behind simple devices can help elevate their status from mundane chores to marvels of design. A perspective increasingly important given current rapid technological developments where foundational simplicity often underpins complex systems like digital circuits or data transmission protocols, driven by routine components initially deemed unremarkable yet indispensable today. Conclusion. Society's tendency so celebrate only striking brilliance leaves countless critical contributions overlooked. From tiny mechanical parts working seamlessly inside machines to basic organizational systems shaping our social fabric, all quietly supporting what we call progress but which often remains unseen beyond headlines and advertisements. Recognizing why society ignores these crucial yet boring inventions helps us understand not just what drives innovation, but also how important it is to value each piece along humanity's ongoing journey. As we move forward into an era where technology becomes ever more complex yet still depends fundamentally on simple principles perfected over centuries, the idea emerges clear. Sometimes true greatness lies not in dazzling displays but within humble routines shaping our collective future. Chapter 6. Recognizing the power of routine innovations and progress. Throughout history, the most extraordinary advancements are often celebrated, famous inventions like the telephone, the light bulb, or the airplane. These breakthroughs capture our imagination and dominate headlines. Yet, lurking beneath these headline-grabbing innovations are countless routine inventions that quietly lay the groundwork for progress. This chapter aims to shift perspective. It's not only revolutionary ideas that propel us forward but also a steady stream of overlooked, seemingly mundane inventions that form the backbone of technological evolution. To understand their importance, consider how innovation rarely occurs in isolated leaps. Instead, it is an incremental process, small improvements layered upon each other over time, that creates significant change. Think about a simple screw or bolt. At first glance, it might seem dull, just a basic fastening device without much fanfare. But without these tiny components, precisely manufactured and standardized, the entire architecture of modern machinery would collapse into chaos. They enable complex machines to function reliably and efficiently. Every major technological breakthrough depends on such foundational inventions, many of which are considered dull or routine by society's standards. The development of electrical wiring connectors is a perfect example. Initially designed as simple metal clips and terminals to bind wires securely together, these components evolved through countless small improvements into sophisticated systems that power entire cities today. Their engineering challenges were non-trivial, ensuring safety, conductivity, durability, all while maintaining ease of installation and affordability. These incremental innovations often go unnoticed because their value isn't immediately apparent or glamorous. They don't deliver instant awe like a new gadget or a sleek design, but instead serve as silent enablers for larger achievements. However, their cumulative effect is profound. They create reliable foundations on which broader technological ecosystems depend. The process of refining routine inventions involves continuous tinkering, a pursuit driven by necessity rather than spectacle. Engineers and inventors spend years optimizing small parts, making them more durable, easier to produce at scale, safer to use. All tasks that seem trivial but are crucial for widespread adoption and long-term success. Take standardized fasteners such as nuts and bolts again. They exemplify this principle perfectly. By establishing uniform sizes and specifications early on, thanks to standardization efforts in the late 19th century, industries could mass-produce components interchangeably across companies worldwide. This seemingly minor step revolutionized manufacturing processes by enabling efficiency at scales unimaginable before their introduction. Similarly, think about common electrical connectors used in everyday appliances. These straightforward devices hide complex engineering considerations around conductivity resistance and safety standards that had to be meticulously addressed during their development. Recognizing this pattern helps us appreciate how progress isn't solely about dramatic breakthroughs but also about sustained improvement within existing frameworks. The boring work done behind closed doors in laboratories or factories that rarely garner public acclaim yet makes everything possible. Beyond individual examples lie broader lessons about innovation itself. Real advancement often depends on building resilient infrastructures through relentless attention to detail. Improving materials quality slightly here, refining manufacturing methods there, that collectively enable groundbreaking innovations later down the line. This perspective aligns with how industries evolve over centuries. Initial crude versions give way gradually through iterative refinement until they become reliable tools everyone can use daily. And sometimes those tools remain unchanged for decades because they simply do their job well enough without fuss or fanfare. An illustrative case is postal stamps, a modest invention with enormous societal impact once standardized universally across countries. They facilitated communication at an unprecedented scale despite appearing trivial initially. Yet their widespread adoption depended heavily on consistent design standards enabled by routine innovations in printing technology and paper manufacturing processes over time. Another example is standardized clocks, a seemingly boring element managing schedules worldwide, but essential for coordinating activities across different regions during industrialization's rise. The synchronization required intricate engineering solutions involving precise timekeeping mechanisms refined through incremental improvements spanning generations. What all these examples demonstrate is that progress relies heavily on the collective power of many small innovations, not just flashy discoveries but also durable staples quietly operating behind scenes, helping societies organize themselves more effectively with each passing decade. The challenge then becomes recognizing value where society tends to overlook it, and routine innovations whose significance only reveals itself after years or even centuries have passed. This requires shifting our mindset from seeking immediate excitement toward appreciating consistency and reliability as vital qualities driving human achievement forward. In fact, many groundbreaking developments depend entirely on these foundational routines being perfected first, and often remain invisible until a larger breakthrough reveals how indispensable those boring components truly are. For instance, advances in battery technology hinge not only on discovering new materials but also on optimizing existing cell designs incrementally, a slow process marked by countless small tweaks rather than sudden leaps forward. By acknowledging this reality, we can better understand why progress looks less like fireworks than steady construction work. Layer upon layer of modest improvements stacking up over time into something monumental. This perspective has profound implications for how we view innovation today. Instead of dismissing routine inventions as mere background noise amid exciting breakthroughs, we should see them as crucial threads woven into the fabric of human progress. The quiet workhorses enabling everything from smartphones to space exploration alike. Furthermore, and perhaps most importantly, it encourages us to value patience alongside creativity when pursuing technological advancement because big changes seldom happen overnight. They emerge from persistent effort applied consistently over long periods. In conclusion, recognizing the power of routine innovations reshapes our understanding of human progress within the most boring inventions in human history. These unglamorous yet essential creations form an intricate web supporting every leap forward we celebrate today, from infrastructure expanding civilizations reach to daily objects making life manageable, all built through painstaking refinement rooted firmly in persistence rather than spectacle. When we start appreciating these modest achievements equally alongside flashy breakthroughs, we foster a more balanced view of what true innovation entails. A tapestry woven from both dazzling ideas and diligent routines working harmoniously toward humanity's bright future. Chapter 7: Rethinking Innovation, Valuing Dullness for Future Advancements. Throughout this book, we have explored how the most mundane inventions, those that often go unnoticed and uncelebrated, have quietly shaped human history. From the simple paperclip to the humble screw, these innovations form the backbone of our daily lives and technological progress. Yet, society's perception of what constitutes valuable innovation remains heavily skewed toward excitement, novelty, and aesthetic appeal. In this final chapter, we will challenge that perception and propose a new way to evaluate and appreciate what it truly means to innovate. The common narrative of innovation tends to celebrate groundbreaking breakthroughs, flying cars, smartphones with dazzling features, or artificial intelligence that can beat humans at chess. These stories are compelling because they excite our imagination and promise a leap into a better future. However, this focus on spectacle often overshadows the countless small but essential inventions that make such leaps possible in the first place. The truth is that progress is rarely made through sudden jumps. Instead, it arises from steady accumulation, step by step, built on routines and incremental improvements. To understand why dullness should be valued more highly in innovation, we need to consider a broader perspective, one rooted in history and functional utility rather than glamour. Many transformative advances rely on foundational inventions that seem insignificant at first glance but are vital cogs in larger systems. For example, standardized screws enabled the assembly of complex machinery, from aircraft to medical devices, that revolutionized industries. Electrical connectors may appear boring but are critical for powering everything from household appliances to space stations. This perspective shift involves recognizing that usefulness does not always correlate with excitement or visual appeal. It challenges us to see value not just in what dazzles us but also in what enables other innovations to flourish quietly behind the scenes. One reason society tends to overlook these routine innovations is cultural bias toward novelty and aesthetics. Media outlets tend to highlight flashy inventions because they grab attention. Marketing campaigns emphasize sleek designs over functional simplicity. This creates an illusion that innovation must be dramatic or glamorous, a misconception that diminishes appreciation for everyday tools whose importance lies precisely in their unobtrusiveness. Furthermore, our cultural narratives often associate worthiness with spectacle rather than substance. Inventors who create elegant gadgets or design striking products receive fame, whereas those who develop reliable yet dull components remain anonymous. Even though their contributions are equally crucial for technological ecosystem stability. But perhaps most importantly, valuing dullness can lead us toward more sustainable innovation practices. When we focus solely on eye-catching advancements without considering foundational elements' importance, we risk neglecting robustness and longevity, the qualities necessary for durable progress. In rethinking how we evaluate innovation's worthiness, it becomes clear that we should embrace simplicity as a virtue rather than dismiss it as mediocrity or boredom. Simplicity often embodies efficiency. Fewer parts mean fewer points of failure. Straightforward designs facilitate maintenance. Universal standards promote compatibility across different systems. This approach aligns with natural principles observed in biological evolution as well as engineering design. Many successful adaptations involve incremental changes built upon existing structures rather than radical upheaval, a process sometimes called evolutionary engineering. By appreciating routine innovation's cumulative power over time, the boring steps, we recognize their role as catalysts for dramatic breakthroughs later down the line. So how might this reevaluation influence future development? For one thing, policymakers could prioritize funding not only groundbreaking research but also supporting infrastructure improvements, upgrading standard components like bolts or electrical connectors that underpin entire industries' efficiency and safety standards. Similarly, entrepreneurs might shift focus from creating flashy gadgets toward refining fundamental tools, making them more accessible or durable, to foster inclusive growth across communities worldwide. For example, developing low-cost staple technologies like affordable water filters or standardized hospital equipment may seem mundane but can dramatically improve health outcomes globally when scaled properly. Educational systems can also benefit from emphasizing foundational knowledge about simple yet essential inventions, their history, and engineering principles as part of STEM curricula, to cultivate appreciation among students for routine ingenuity's role within larger technological narratives. Ultimately, and perhaps most importantly, we should recognize that true progress isn't solely about spectacular leaps forward but also about steady steps taken every day by ordinary inventors working behind the scenes, in offices, workshops, or within laboratories simply trying to solve practical problems efficiently. Redefining what constitutes innovation allows us not only to honor these modest achievements but also encourages an environment where continuous improvement is valued equally with revolutionary ideas, and where humility is recognized as a virtue alongside creativity. In conclusion, the most boring inventions are not merely dull relics of bygone eras nor trivialities swept aside by modern marvels. They are foundational pillars supporting human advancement itself. By shifting our perspective away from superficial excitement toward sincere appreciation of utility and perseverance hidden within commonplace objects, today's landscape becomes richer, and tomorrow's innovations become even more promising when built upon these quiet legacies of routine ingenuity. In embracing dullness, not as mediocrity but as vital groundwork, we open ourselves up to recognizing all forms of human creativity equally deserving of respect, and ultimately foster an environment where future developments grow outwards from solid foundations laid by countless unseen hands working tirelessly behind seemingly boring inventions whose true value finally comes into sharp focus when viewed through this new lens. Take a deep breath in, exhale slowly, rest now, knowing you are part of this ongoing journey of invention and discovery. Good night.